Good morning, everybody. We are very happy today to start our first training session of the Extra Light project. This is the first transnational webinar on public procurement in Europe from two that we as ELCA will organize in the next weeks. I'm very happy to have our expert with us today, Mrs. Sarah Bedin, who will introduce to us the concept and terminology, in particular related to the public procurement in relation to innovation, green and social objectives. This is the introduction. These webinars are introduction to the technical activities and training activities of Extra Light related to accessing the public procurement in the extra EU countries that we aim to carry out in the next months. This is also a sort of, let's say, example for you, the project partners of Extra Light, how to settle your local workshops with your companies. So here we will make the overview of the public procurement at the European level, and you will receive the very detailed explanation in this first part, of course, on different terminologies, terms, schemes, and also application procedures. I'm very happy to have Sarah with us because Sarah is the independent international expert on innovation public procurement. She's supporting several European projects in the pre-commercial public procurement and public procurement of innovation. And she's also, I would say, one of the mentors in Italy for introducing the innovation public procurement in at the regional and national level. So I will leave the floor to Sarah. And first, so only a couple of household rules. So you have the question and answer section in the webinar. You chat. If you want to ask questions, please do it there, or you can also raise your hands. All the questions will be reported in the, let's say, we'll make a short break after the first hour. You will see there are several questions coming, so we'll inform Sarah that there are several questions. And we'll make a first break question and answer session, and then at the end of the webinar. So please remember to write your questions or raise your hands. So in this way, you will be able to ask them directly. Thank you very much for your participation, and I wish you a great webinar.
Thank you very much, Marta. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here today and to introduce the main concept related to innovation and green and social public procurement in Europe. Okay, so we have two sessions. This is to be considered as the first, so more introductive, and we will go deeply in the innovation and green aspect. Next time, I think we will have more time to work and elaborate more on social goals. So this is the agenda, but let's go and enter in this presentation that is intended to give you the main important and relevant definitions. So what is public procurement? Public procurement refers to the purchase by governments or state-owned enterprises of three categories of items: goods, services, and works. The public procurement counts for a substantial portion of taxpayers' money. Consider that 19% of the internal product is spent, the equivalent part is spent on public procurement. This is why, for the relevance that public procurement has, is why the governments are expected to carry out efficiently with high standard of conduct in order to ensure high quality, because public procurement corresponds to the need to enhance, improve the quality of public services, to safeguard the public interest and obtain best value for money. So this concept will be recurrent concept in the presentation. It's important to consider that procurement is based on competition and is aimed at obtaining best value for money, the money of taxpayers. So the competition is one of the main important concepts. The competition between private companies determine the fact the price offered correspond to market price. How we can say that a bidding process, a procurement has been awarded at market price? Because of the competition between private companies. The competition determines the market price. But talking about terminology is very important to establishing and defining very well the main important distinction there is between subsidies and grants, and on the other side, public procurement. In my experience, happened that several times the words and terminology is confused. We talk about call for proposal when we are applying for a grant. We refer to call for tender when we have to deal with the public procurement. But not only for the terminology, these instruments and policy are really different. Let's see what are the main pillars and characteristics of these two options. And when we'll talk about innovation, the distinction between grants and procurement will be very significant. And you, as a suppliers and economic operators, can have a lot of opportunity in participating in call for proposal to obtain a grant, as well as a lot of opportunity that are not well known in Europe to participate to call for tender to award a procurement. So a grant or call for proposal is a public invitation. You are invited to address or to support the contracting authority to realize projects coherently with their framework, with their program. So in grants application, the categories of applicants, the categories of beneficiaries are very well identified beforehand and can be reserved to particular categories of applicants, for example, SMEs, for example, startups, for example, innovation centers or research centers or universities. So the applicants, potential applicants, are very well identified beforehand. And the definition of the project pertain mainly to the proponents, and is indeed we talk about a proposal, not an offer, but a proposal. The proposal contains the description of the operation that the applicants consider useful, strategic to achieve the goals. So the contracting authority define the framework, define the objective, but the definition and elaboration of the project pertain to applicants. And the contracting authority contribute. So we talk about contribution in terms of percentage of funding. So we call this intensity of funding. When you are dealing with a call for proposal, your main interest, one of your main interests is how much this action will be funded. So what is the intensity of funding for this action? And as I said, this is aimed at supporting through projects or organization the implementation of a vision of a program established by the contracting authority. Let's see the differences when we deal with public procurement. When we talk about public procurement, we refer to a procuring authority that is that implements public procurement for the purchase of services or material products or work necessary to the working of the public authority itself. So there is a need that the procuring authority ask for solution aimed at improving the quality of the public service delivered. And so there is a strict relation between the motivation of the procurement and the determinants that define the quality and efficiency of the public service delivered. So it's not just a framework, an objective, but is more concrete, more analytical, defined the need the procuring authority has. So if you find a call for tender with a need description too much generic, you have the right to ask for specifications, to clarifications. Okay, so these the need description need to oppose all the potential interested bidders at the same level. So you have to be in a position to answer effectively, having analyzed analytically the motivation. When we talk about services, we can refer to intellectual and non-intellectual services. For example, statistical reporting, analysis, consultancy work, maintenance of the building, or material and product of office stationery, IT equipment, lighting, or works like the building work. So we have three categories, okay, in public procurement. Very different. Again, what is the terminology, relevant terminology when we apply for a call for proposal to obtain a grant? We have to read the description of the reimbursement of the eligible costs. Categories of costs that are eligible, and we have category of costs that are not eligible in grant proposal, and the eligibility of the cost is well described in the grant agreements template. So obtaining a grant, the beneficiary have the right to carry out the activities and sustain the expenditure strictly according in relation with the financial plan presented, and can't charge any remuneration, any profit. So we call this as a reimbursement, okay, of the expenditure sustained. Generally speaking, the results of the action in case of grant remain a property of the beneficiaries, okay? So they can exploit their result, and they have to do this several times. So there is a requirement for exploitation of the result. Grants are subject to a written agreement, grant agreement, okay, signed with the two parties, and as a general rule require financing by the grant beneficiary. Your project is a clear example of grant, no? The project you are pursuing, we are today implementing together. But sometimes what appear as a public procurement in reality is elaborated, defined in a very in a way that can seem a grant and not a procurement. When we talk about procurement, we refer to bidders when they submit and participate to a call for tender, or awardees when they award the contract and they sign the contract because they won the competition. And we don't talk about reimbursement of eligible costs, but we talk about payment of your offered price. Okay, so you define the price to carry out activities, and you have to include, and you can include, the intended profit. Okay, so consider that when you apply for a public tender, you are the profit is also eligible, is why you are competing. The ownership of the result is defined by the contract, but typically they remain property of the procurer. We have an important exception in this regard, that is related to pre-commercial public procurement, an instrument that we will discuss later on. Okay, but keep in mind that the ownership of the result in case of PCP, pre-commercial public procurement, pertain to the suppliers, when in general terms, the public procurer is used to require the ownership of the result with exclusive based contract. Typically, these are the typical and old-fashioned style public procurement. Procurements are subject to a written contract. So we don't talk about agreement, but contract that is signed by the two parties, and to be effective, to be valid and effective, needs to be signed by both parties. Okay, and as a general rule, don't require co-financing. So could happen that in some public procurement, mainly refer to innovation public procurement of a few years ago, 10 years ago, there were these conditions that was assumed from the other side of the word, that is the grant system. So this would be a mistake. So public procurement can't require co-financing, because are not financing, but paying the offered price. Again, the main principles that has to be respected when we deal with grants: the equal treatment of all applicants, but as we said, the categories of eligible admitted beneficiaries can be defined beforehand. So can be a selective procedure by definition, this one, okay? Non-cumulative, any grants fix the maximum eligible cost per financial year. So you can't overcome this amount of money. Can be retroactive. So action that are already completed or quite to be completed can't be presented for grants. Grants is signed, and after the signing of the grant, the action can start, not before, not later. And the co-financing principle, we already said. And what is important, that with grant, beneficiary may not generate profit with the grants they receive. So it's not for profit. On the other side, public procurement, transparency. The public procuring authority has to publish all relevant information concerning its purchases, including rights and obligation of the parties. So if you have doubts, some of your rights, some of your obligation is not clear, example, related to unforeseen potential costs, you can ask posing questions in the period assigned to pose question for Q&A sections. And you can, before the deadline for submission and within the deadline for posing question, you can ask all the clarification, because the clarification and the eventual adjustment or amendment can be done within a defined period of time. So do not ask for questions later. There are very precise period of time to pose question, to receive answers, to eventually appeal. The time to appeal is called standstill period. In all call for tender is written the period to pose questions, the period to eventually pose some objection, that is defined as a standstill period. Then transparency. So all the information needs to be available and can be required, of course, within established period of time. Equal treatment and non-discrimination. Here in public procurement, but we will see the exception, the differences between different procedure. But in general terms, there is a policy, a recommendation to encourage the open participation to public procurement and call for tender from European Commission side. So all interested parties need to be treated in the same way. So one-to-one dedicate conversation, for example, with the procuring authority are not admitted according to the general principle, no? Okay, and as I said before, public procurement is an instrument, is a set of instruments that enhance competition. So there is, because of the need to assure a better value for money result, there is a need to increase the choice of potential suppliers. So the competition between a lot of suppliers is the base ground to assure better value for money. And proportionality. So the choice and the organization of the call for tender have to be proportionate to the subject and the value of the purchase. For example, if a public procurement required you to deploy 100,000 euro for lightning systems, the guarantees or the financial capacity to be demonstrated can be higher of these. In the past, the general rule was to ask for 3 times the value of the procurement in terms of guarantees, assurance, etc. That was, of course, discouraging the SMEs to participate and to accede to the public procurement, and especially with innovation public procurement that we will talk in a few minutes, the participation, open participation and elimination of these stringent requirements related to the financial capacity have been strictly reduced. So there is a rule, a principle to reduce these requirements, because innovation needs to enable the participation also of non-traditional suppliers and new suppliers. Okay, so there are significant difference between these two systems, and it's not so easy to recognize these two instruments. When happened that a public sector company owned by public-owned company, or for example a region, launch a public procurement for innovation, it's very common that the companies continue thinking about funding, grant, and subsidies. And so their answer is significantly unfocused, because of this misunderstanding and confusion. Okay, so entering in public procurement word, as I said, the public procurement refers to 3 categories of purchase: goods, services, and works. The goods include all items like supplies, products, equipment, raw materials, and general services incidental to the supply of the shelf. For example, the installation of the procured lighting system. Okay, the services, when we talk about services are basically the strategic outsourcing of labor for a specific purpose. So when we talk about and when we require, when we purchase services, we refer to people-based services at enterprise level with an agreed upon scope and specific deliverables. For example, you have procured my service and I have to deliver this presentation, which is a deliverable. Works having their objective, the execution or jointing the executive design and the execution of a work, for example, the realization of a building. Okay, these are the 3 categories, and the regulation and directive are related to these 3 specific categories. The legal framework. The legal framework is defined by the directive 25, 24, and 25. The main relevant directive for your case, for our case, is the 24 of 2014 directive. We call this as a new directive, despite they are from 2014. Okay, they created a level playing all businesses across Europe, so the participation of public procurement is quite responds to quite common principles and rules. So to assure a minimum harmonized public procurement systems, to enable the participation of companies across Europe. The directives are applicable for procurement that are above the thresholds. Okay, under the thresholds are applicable national rules, your national rules. Of course, and nevertheless, these national rules respect the general principle of European law, of European directive. Instead, the national rules have to be approved by European Commission, European Union. If not defined, are automatically transposed at national level the directive. Okay, so you will see that at least for the country systems that I know, the procurement framework and legislation at national level, I see that there are no significant differences in procurement across Europe. So the directive has been mainly transposed in European countries, unless certain definitions related to innovation. We will have no time to analyze the differences among the countries, but I can provide you a very interesting but long study that has been conducted that made the benchmarking between the different transposition of the legal framework at European level in the national legislation referring to innovation procurement. I will provide you the link. So the threshold are defined like this. So the threshold is, you can hear about threshold, determine the applicability, full applicability of directive or national law. These are the thresholds. The first is for public work, public supply and service contract awarded by central government authorities, and the other one, more higher, is for the public supply and service contract awarded by sub-central contracting authorities. Okay. Now, coming to and entering more in the detail and in procedures. The public procurement directives do not prescribe one-size-fits-all approach. We have, to be honest, 7 different procedures plus 1. The two, we will see the last 2 in the next slide, but now focus on the first 5 procedure. We have the open procedure. That is the procedure that I really much prefer personally, because I deal with innovation, and I'm convinced, but is my personal idea, that an open procedure is really able to simulate the participation of non-traditional suppliers. That is very convenient when you have to deal with innovation and you have to enable creativity. No, the definition, elaboration of disruptive innovation. You can refer to traditional suppliers if you want to ask for a real new original disruptive solution that can revolutionate the sector. Okay, so this is why dealing with innovation, I really I work mainly defining and writing for my clients, for my the public authorities, open procedure. So where the bids can be submitted by any operator, respecting, of course, exclusion, complying with exclusion criteria. Exclusion criteria are related to the compliance with the law and the payment of taxes. Just to give you a focus, complying with selection criteria, for example, to have the organizational and accountability structure to deal with the contract. So there are in any case exclusion criteria, the selection criteria to be faced, but is related, is a multiple is an open approach that is open to any operator potentially. Then there is the restricted procedure, where at least 5 bidders are selected to asked to submit bids based on defined objectives. In this case is made a pre-selection based on objective criteria. So I can select, the public authority can pre-select the suppliers that have minimum characteristics that can deal with the contract, and so is restricted. Then we have the competitive procedure with negotiation, where at least 3 bidders are selected to submit bids based on objective criteria, and there is a negotiation. Then we have competitive dialogue. At least 3 candidates are chosen to supply a solution based on the description of public procurement requirements. And then we have these newly instruments that I would like to have time to discuss with you extensively, because innovation partnership is a newly instrument introduced by the new directive, but can be used in a very particular circumstances. And there is no case law at the moment, but is quite complicated. Where at least 3 candidates are chosen to develop and supply goods and services which do not exist yet on the market, but we will explain better these instruments later on. In the case of competitive procedure with negotiation, the contracting authority is required to define a minimum requirement to be met by all procurers that is not subject to negotiation. So identify some criteria, and I have to verify the final tenders are in conformity with these minimum requirements. Okay. There is no negotiation. In the case of competitive dialogue, the contracting authorities may discuss all aspects. Indeed, this is a residual procedure. So this has to be very motivated, very well motivated by the procuring authority, why they are using and selecting this procedure, because everything can be discussed, everything can be defined and assign enormous flexibility to negotiate. Okay, and when can be implemented? When the procuring authority has a lot of uncertainty about the conditions, the subjects, the contractual provisions. Talking and referring to innovation, I personally, and I have to specify that this is my personal idea. When I deal with innovation, I really don't much appreciate this procedure, because the procuring authority can discuss everything, also the needs and also the solution. And no, so there is a lot of discretionality, but more than this, I'm not perfectly able to assure when I write the contract and when I write the Procurement Act to assure IPR's protection. So the protection of the intellectual property rights can be assured, and I personally see the risk about cherry picking mechanism. So the procuring authority can see different suggestions, different solutions, and then define the final request. Because the competitive dialogue as a phase of dialogue with the invited potential tenders, and then when he has collected all relevant information, the procuring authority launch the final request for offer. And when we deal with disruptive, significant innovation, I don't see the incentive for the supply side to propose in advance their own solution. No, because it's very hard to protect intellectual property rights. This is my personal idea. I know that competitive dialogue is very well used when there is something more related to the business model, no, not the object, the requirement, not the object of the purchase, but the context and the business model is not clear. I see that there is an efficacy in developing these instruments. I mentioned 7 procedures. Indeed, we have other 2 procedures plus 1 that we will analyze next time. The other one that will be discussed next time is called open market consultation, and is not a procurement procedure. Is a preparatory process and procedure that is implemented and can be implemented before any selection procedure conducted with these instruments. So we have not to confuse, open competitive dialogue that we analyze, that is a way, is a competitive dialogue which is a selective procedure that has not to be confused with a procedure that we will discuss next time, that is called open market consultation or technical dialogue. Is totally different. Okay, this one is aimed at selecting the awardee, the other no, is just a preparatory, and we will see the different characteristics. We have also this particular negotiated procedure without publication, but can be used in a very, very, very specific case. For example, I make you an example. When we buy, as a public procurer, we buy R&D, research and development, then we see the definition. We buy testing of a new solution, innovative solution, and we want to prosecute, enlarge the time for testing, extend the time for testing. We have to refer exactly to this, to the particular solution already tested, if you want to prolong. This is why in this particular condition, where it's clear that only one firm can execute the intended contract, we can negotiate with this company and extending tested without publishing the call for tender, because it's clear that the firm is the only one that can satisfy the need. Okay, and is done for purpose of research, experimentation, study, and development, not to procure the solution itself. Then we have design contests, no, are mainly implemented in architecture, engineering, no, projects. When you ask for design of the project, and then you will launch the procurement of the work, of the realization of the work, with the normal procedures that we have already discussed. Okay, so consider that if you participate in a design contest, you are just required to provide a plan or a design, but you are not selling your lightnings. You are not selling your products. You are providing intellectual work. You are providing the architectural and engineering project, but you are not sure of a future assignment for the supply of the product. Okay, so in the case of design contest, the directive gives the possibility to award a subsequent contract to the winner, but in case of service contract, so if you need again to extend the service, as we already said, if you need to extend the service or to adjust a design, of course you can assign a limited contract to proceed in this design, but is not related to the procurement of the product. Okay, if I can, I don't know if there are already questions or if I can proceed with the next.
Please proceed, Sarah. Everything
okay.
Clear for now.
Okay, so now I would like to talk about innovation procurement. As I said, is my personal view. I'm convinced that competition is the relevant dimension when we talk about and we deal with innovation. I know, and you have to know, that European Commission, in particular DG GROW, is developing and promoting a more participated models, and they call this co-creation. So a kind of co-creation between the public procurer and the suppliers in co-creating new, improved solutions. Personally, when I see this in practice, I think that suppliers are really, there is an information asymmetry. There is an information asymmetry. Of course, the description of the services, where public services, where the innovation will be embedded, pertain and can be defined by the public procurer, who has a full vision and full competence on the description of the public services. But when we talk about products and technologies and solutions, I think that the competition between companies can determine very promising results. But consider that there are also two approaches. One is more related, formally speaking, to procurement, because procurement is a way to assure the competition before, during, and after the execution contract. There are also approaches like more cooperative. In my particular and personal view, the risk is to confuse with a too much cooperative oriented approach. We risk to pass in the schema, we risk to confuse the procurement with the grant schema. This is why today I started clarifying the two different mechanisms. Okay, subsidies, grants on one side, and procurement. Let's see. Why there is this emphasis, and there is an emphasis on innovation public procurement also at European level, because they realized that innovation policy mix were too much unbalanced in favor of offer side approach. So there was the idea in 90s, this is a very old now idea, it was considered that the innovation, increasing innovation was a good thing, but in principle, the optimum was obtained when innovation is sustained. So there was a push attitude, push measures aimed at introducing the generated offers from the supply side into the market. So the offer side policies promote and provide typically grants, but funding to the offer side, to companies, so they can elaborate their own idea, and the public sector is engaged again after to enable the technology transfer, to introduce ex post the generated innovation in the industry side to the market. This is very time and cost consuming approach, because if the market is not predetermined, not prepared, the user are not prepared, the technology transfer is a very hard exercise. And typically what happened with the traditional innovation policy, mainly managed through grants, that the companies patented a lot of ideas and solutions, but this innovation was not exploited. So we noted at the European level the failure of these kind of instruments to assure the exploitation of the innovation result. So the decision was to rebalance the two approaches, promoting also the demand side through public procurement, where the approach is a pull approach. The market is predetermined, is prepared, They are prepared to buy solution, lightning systems. They need lightning system, but they discover that in the market, the very perfect solution doesn't exist, and they want to challenge the market, asking the market, look, I need something more. I need some additional result, but I'm here. I'm already representing the market. I assure the exploitability of the solution because I'm ready to procure. This is totally different. The technology transfer is not still necessary. The market is already aware. The users are already engaged, and the solution is developed in a way that is fit for purpose, very, very specific and well suitable to satisfy the public interest. Of course, this policy, this set of instruments has demonstrated its efficacy in the years. But more than this, we noted that and the European Union decided to finance the public procurement. So the decision has been to finance not the offer side, not the companies, but the procurers, so they can launch innovation public procurement. So the public procurers in Europe are founded because they have no, when this policy started in 2007 and 2009, the observation was that in Europe, the public procurement was not adequately developed. And to have a functioning market, procurement market, we need to stay in the light brown line curve. You see, there are two curves in this slide. Our performance in Europe is represented here, the past performance was represented with the orange curve. So our performance was to have no adequate quote of public procurement with as object the research and development and innovation. In other functioning markets, for example, Asia states, the public procurement do the innovation role, asking for research and development, asking for innovation, acting so as early adopters, and of course, the majority of the public procurers buys solution that represent the standards. But there is also a quote, a significant quote, 2.5% that of public procurers that require something that it doesn't exist, that is totally new, that needs to be developed from the scratch, and 30.5% of early adopters that are acting as launching customers for newly arrived solution on the market. This is the idea. So how European Commission has thought to sustain this curve, through the European funding program, Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020, and now Horizon Europe finance public procurers, so municipalities, schools, hospitals, to procure innovation. The hope is that these kind of instruments will become operandi of public procurers in Europe, and so they will be able and capable to procure innovation. This is the study that I was referring before. If you are curious, you can look for this. Now the link, it doesn't appear, sorry. Doesn't appear, but there is a study, has been conducted a study in 2020, so it's quite recent as a study, that make a picture, a benchmarking of the implementation of innovation procurement procurement, innovation procurement policy frameworks across Europe. And you can see the performance of your country. Here is indicated the performance of my country, but if you are curious, you can see how your countries was performing in 2020. I think that things are evolving, and so it can be that modest performers now has increased their performances implementing extensive measure and policies related to innovation procurement. Now, entering in definitions, we have to create a first distinction. We are talking about innovation procurement when we refer to the process of innovation procured or the result of innovation process procured. I mean, consider that I want to buy the inventive idea and the feasibility studies and the prototyping services and the testing services, so mainly brain works from companies to comes with new ideas. I'm buying, in this case, the process of innovation, the process itself, the process, the activity of thinkers or of solution provider. I'm buying for their brain activities, and so the process. When we talk about innovation procurement, we have two categories, or two objects, the process, as I described, and the result. I can also buy the result of the innovative thinking and solution development. In this case, we talk about, in the first case, as we will see, we will talk about public procurement for innovation, to determine new innovation. And in the second case, we will talk about innovation procurement, public procurement of innovative solution. But the two categories are included in one main definition, that is innovation public procurement. This has not to be confused with innovative procurement. What is innovative procurement? Can be an e-procurement system, can be an artificial intelligence tool that automatically select the bidders or make the verification of the requirements of the selection and exclusion criteria, for example. So when we talk about innovative procurement, we are talking about tools and innovation that regards the process of procurement, not the process of innovation. Okay, I hope that this is clear, if useful. When we have innovative procurement, is mainly an opportunity for software houses that are developing tools to enhance the performances in the procurement process. You as economic operators, industrial operators, commercial operators, I think are interested more in innovation public procurement, when you can provide your solution thinking and your products and services. Innovation is defined in directive and in other several documentation, official documentation. When we talk about innovation, we talk about implementation of a new or significantly improved product, service, or process. When we talk about innovation, so we include the research and development needed to develop a new solution, but we are also including in the innovation, as I told before, the commercialization of the deployment of significantly improved, so innovative solutions. I have decided to represent research and development, so new solution with a brain icona, and this lamp for the deployment of innovative, so significantly improved solution and product. This is a procurement of product or services or work. This is a procurement of services, in particular R&D services. So innovation procurement includes R&D procurement. When I want to buy for a brain work of subject to provide new ideas and new solutions. A public procurement of innovative solution when I want to buy something that is not already the standard in the market and is newly arriving into the market. Or I can procure for a combination of both, the R&D effort plus the resulting innovative solution. A combination. Indeed, now we will discuss about the bundle and unbundled procurement, referring to innovation object and scope. So it's separate when we separate the procurement of R&D services from the procurement of the result of innovation, but we can have also procedure when these parts are combined in one single procedure. Also, the communication guidance say the same thing. So they express the same concept in quite partially different words. I buy the process of innovation, so the research and development services, and I can also buy partial outcome. In this sense is consider, for example, the prototype is a partial outcome because is prototype has to be tested to be considered a final end solutions. But again, we have also the definition of the procurement of innovative solution as the outcomes of innovation created by others. So again, procurement for innovation. Procurement for innovation involves research and development services of new products, new services, new processes, which do not exist yet. How a public procurement can discover and assess that the product, services, and process intended, desired is not available, do not exist yet. They have to conduct a very diligent analysis, scanning the market, conducting open market consultation, analyzing patents. So it's a hard work. The work for the innovator procurer is a very hard work to analyze the baseline and the state of the art. The public procurement, in any case, describe its needs and prompts businesses and researchers to develop in a competitive way innovative products, services, or processes that to meet the need. Look that these actions are very well founded from European Commission. So there is a concrete interest for public procurers across Europe to implement this action because the founding found 100% the cost of the public procurement. So the procurement is paid in case of assignment of the grant to implement this action and are quite interesting. Now, so consider that this is a policy that is and will be more significantly sustained also financially from European Commission. This is why can be interesting also for the supply side to be proactive in analyzing the opportunities of funding, to be prepared in case of the launching of the requirement action in terms of launching of public procurement funded by European Commission. This is why we are talking about the instrument, because innovation can be also developed in your sector. We have, on the other side, the procurement of innovation, not for future disruptive innovation, but of innovation. The public buyer can be based on his scanning, based on the open consultation with the market, based on patent analysis, discover that the solution is not off the shelf, but what is missing and what is necessary is an incremental innovation. In this case, acting as an early adopter, the public procurer can buy a product, service, or process that is quite new to the market and contains substantially newer characteristics. European Commission has provided also a measurement in the soft regulation, in the measurement of this to understand, to be sure to implement the right instruments. So early adopters refer to the first 20% of customers on the market that are buying a new or significantly improved product, service, or process. This what means. Theoretically, I don't think that I never seen a public procurer that conduct a worldwide analysis of the market for a specific solution to be sure to be within the first 20 customers for that solution. But this gives us an idea that innovation and procurement of product, innovative product, include a marginal or incremental innovation itself. So the solution to be considered innovative has not to be adopted by more than 20% of customers. If it's adopted by more than 20% of customers, means that is not still innovative. This provides us a measurement, an idea of what is considered innovative and what is not considered innovative. We can say that, for example, LED is an innovation because it's commonly used. 3D printers are not innovative now because are used that from more than 20% of customers. So it's very hard to demonstrate that the innovation, that the product is really innovation. Why I'm talking about demonstrate? Because to receive funding, the public procurers need to demonstrate they are acting as launching customers and early adopters. And you as company, you can help them to identify eventually some characteristics of the product that can improve the quality and the performances of the product to be really an improvement and to be innovative in some way. But innovation in this case includes also existing solutions that are to be utilized in a new and innovative way. So it's not research and development, the use and the implementation of a solution the adoption and implementation of a solution from one sector to another is not, it can be considered as a research and development, but can be considered as incremental innovation. So in a schema, I hope you are able to follow the slides. In case, please inform me. In a schema, we have two categories plus one. The color in red identified the research and development procurement. We will see an example, very interesting from my perspective, that is called pre-commercial public procurement. And in this case, in this area of work, in area of procurement, the procurer is asking and is procuring research and development aimed at develop a radically new solution, but not the solution itself. In this case, the procurer limit is its own action in procuring knowledge, know-how. They have no idea how the solution can be. They want to procure the feasibility study, the prototyping services, the testing, to see and analyze the result, to decide to procure and to implement, to do the investment, and to procure the innovative solution. So we have another separate step that we have already analyzed is a graphical representation of what we have already presented. We have the procurement of the deployment of a solution, improved solution. But we can have also the combination of the two procedures in one. The combination of both R&D services plus the resulting innovative solution. This is the complete exhaustive picture of what we call innovation public procurement. R&D services procurement, here you can find the definition. It involves fundamental research, applied research, and experimental development. Okay, it doesn't involve the result. The quantity, production or supply of to establish commercial viability or to recover the research and development cost. The R&D procurement doesn't include the supply of the resulting solutions to establish the recover of development costs. It just refers to the R&D effort. Now, I would like to talk with you about pre-commercial public procurement. That is
Sarah, we have 3 questions related to innovation. Okay. I don't know if you would like to take them right now.
Where I can find it?
We will show you immediately.
Okay.
So we will interrupt for a second your presentation and we will show you these 3 questions.
Okay.
Okay, we will put it on the full screen so then you can see it well. And so the first one, which is the most used procurement in the European Union for lighting in your experience? And okay. The second, if you have any examples of innovation procurement in lighting, because it might be connected.
Yes.
And the last one regards how the innovation level is defined and calculated in the procurement of innovation. Because very often public authorities are not prepared to evaluate the innovation properly, and how this gap between the need of innovation and capacity to recognize the innovation is solved.
Okay, so the first question I think we can answer at the end, because we have to talk about innovation partnership. That, in my personal opinion, and indeed you asked my experience, so I'm expliciting that is based on my limited, we say, experience. Innovation partnership, in my opinion, is abused. It's going to be abused. Competitive dialogue, if we talk about lightning, is not very much used. I think that the open procedure is the most used procurement instrument. I have no statistics on that, but I think that the market in the industrial sector is well developed. Let me say, is not related to innovation in the first question. So is very much populated this sector. There is a lot of competition. So I think that the open procedure is the procedure more used. Then we will see how the open procedure is managed to target and achieve green objective, and what are the models that can be implemented to achieve circular or green achievement requirements, no? So can be very sophisticated, the procedure, but I will answer like this. Second question, do you have an example of innovation procurement in lightning? Yes, I have. Indeed, there is a local session where I will present these cases. Of course, there are there are two European funded projects in this sector. One is ProLight, and the other one, I don't remember the name now, but are example of innovation procurement. I can provide you a link after the session, because I was engaged to develop a session, another webinar on these cases histories, but I will provide you the link, the relevant link, when you can see the cases. And the question is where the public authority bought a service business model to use lightning posts to sell information to municipalities, or just products. Both, I would say both, of course, in the past more related to products, but buying services is very well developed recently in the last years. And I think that a precursor, a pilot in this area can be found in the underground of London. So the entity that managed the underground in London launched several years ago. So it was quite innovative, the first approach to buying the service and to implement this approach. But as we will see, there are important and relevant new models and mechanisms to procure the services and to pay for the services. And also the related services, as you say, the information, very important. This is a very strategic as a procurement. I would say that it will become predominant and more important. And enabling also innovation. How the innovation level is defined and calculated in the procurement of innovation. Very often public authorities are not prepared. Yes, you are right. Indeed, there are instruments that are not implemented with a due diligence, but it's up to you also to contribute and to provide information about innovation. I mean, there is a conflict of interest from the companies. They want to demonstrate that their solution is innovative and newly not already on the market, when the public procurer anticipate that he has the intention to launch an innovation procurement. When the procurer present to the market the intention to procure innovation, immediately the market has no solution available. And these information asymmetries, of course, create some problems. The problem is that, in my opinion, the public procurer has not to predefine an intention to procure innovation, because innovation for the sake of innovation it doesn't offer any value. But there is typically an obligation to use the, resources, funding, to procure innovation. So is a bias. There is a bias in the mistake in the programming of the measure that sustain the procurement, which is the main important element of distortion in this market. Because when they launch and provide advice, we are looking for innovation, no innovation. And so the work for them is very hard. I particular, not in your sector, I conducted several recognition of the state of the art through patent search, participation in fairs, in events, in asking to companies to provide the solution to be tested and to see the performance. In any case, there is this information asymmetry that can be mitigated through these instruments: patent analysis, participation to events, manifestation, fairs, through open market consultation. The open market consultation is a very powerful instrument that has to be published in the TED, where you can find information about public procurement in the TED. But economic operators are not so used to analyze and scan the TED. That is provide you information. There are also services for pay. You can pay for services that provide you the updated list of open call for tender, and is a valid instrument. So you have not to spend your time in looking for this information, and you can be informed consistently with your CVP, code for procurement, corresponding to your sector and activities, and so you can be informed. There are instruments to recognize the innovation. Yes, are patent analysis, open market consultation, market scanning, market investigation, literature analysis, relevant magazine, and no, but is a work. And you are right.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Very exhaustive. Coming back to you. So you have to reshare your screen.
I have to do this.
Yes.
Okay.
We are back. Yes.
And it's very difficult to analyze the state-of-the-art analysis when before you launch a pre-commercial public procurement, because the assumption for pre-commercial public procurement is that the solution doesn't exist, and a significant research and development effort is necessary to develop a real distinctive and new solution. Wow. It seems quite impossible, but in my experience, it's not, because simple solution can be really radically innovative. Simple solutions and approach. Formally speaking, I know that your questions are more related to practical experience, and I will be glad to offer you, but today is more boring, I know, refer to definitions. And so apologies, I tried to complete this section, but I really remain available to offer you all the case history that are more interesting. But pre-commercial public procurement is founded in Europe, and you can find There has been already one project, ProLight, and another that I will find the name in a few minutes. I don't want to tell you a wrong name. So is founded. What are the pillars and the principles? Competitive development in phases, sharing of IPRs, risks and benefits. In PCP, IPRs ownership is allocated to you suppliers, contractors, and the procurer obtain the use, but not the exploitation rights of your IPR. So with this particular instrument, the regulation of IPRs is very, very sophisticated and protect a lot the suppliers, and at the same time is capable to align the objective and assure a cooperation with the objective to assure the exploitability of the IPRs. So it's very powerful instrument to have an exploitation of the result, because the public buyers, the public buyer and the supplier have the same incentive to arrive very faster to the commercialization and exploitation of the new result. And I will explain how. Then there is an important separation from the subsequent purchase of commercial volumes of solution. Indeed, we refer public procurement, pre-commercial public procurement exclusively to the research and development, but not, it doesn't include the commercialization, the procurement of the end supply side. It can be if foreseen, is defined beforehand in the initial call for tender, can include a limited volumes, a procurement of limited volumes of these first products. What are these first products? Are prototypes, okay, in forms of test series to prolong the testing. But we are not talking about the final lighting system ready to be commercialized, ready to be certified. We are talking about a new prototype that you want to test. Of course, if a procurer needs to prolong the testing, can buy a limited volume of this prototype, but the commercialization and the supply is not included. How we can, I represent pre-commercial public procurement, is a competition of brain. You have to provide solutions. The prototypes remain owned by you, is not sell to the procurer, because the procurer has just the need to compare pros and cons and performances of alternative solutions. So they pay your time, they pay your time dedicated to development and elaboration of new solution and testing. So to be explicit, they pay for prototyping services and not for the prototype. Okay, so pre-commercial public procurement is a procurement of knowledge, but is important. And when can be used? Can be used when a public procurer has a so sophisticated challenge, so complex need with many variables, multiple variables, that they have no idea of what the market can develop and what can be the level of performances, the level of performance that can be achieved. In this case, it's convenient for them, before implementing a real concrete investment, large-scale investment, is important for them to test, to dedicate a small quota of budget to be divided in several competitors, suppliers that in competition in parallel develop alternative solutions, to extract relevant information, important information, to decide about the follow-up investment. PCP is, let me, okay, here. I want to anticipate this slide so you can see the pre-commercial public procurement in work, how it works. We have, in these cases, defined 3 phases. Indeed, 3 phases mechanism is promoted by European Commission. This has demonstrated to be effective in case of very relevant and disruptive innovation. The first is called solution design. So the public procurer launch a call for tender and provide information about the intended framework agreement that rules all the 3 phases. So the competitors, the potential bidders, need to know since the beginning what are the conditions ruling phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. There can be any uncertainty about the requirements, about the obligation, about the nature, the type of the services that the bidders is engaged to offer when it bids for the phase 1. So everything needs to be clear. Awarding criteria, selection criteria, also referred to phase 3, needs to be clear at the stage 0. When they start, everything has to be defined. Okay, the first phase is named solution design. So you basically made a paperwork and you design your solution and you study the feasibility for this new solution. Then you implement, you have a contract and you have to execute the contract. And the end, this execution is assessed by the procurers. And in terms of satisfactory and successful completion of the phase. If you pass this assessment, you are invited to bid for phase 2. Then if you award the contract for phase 2, you have to execute the contract that typically is the development of the first prototype and a validation in laboratory condition. At the end of this phase, if you pass and you are satisfactorily and successfully assessed at the end of phase 2, you are admitted to bid for phase 3. In phase 3, what happened? In important things that the solution are tested in operational real context. So the solution comes into practice and the procurers and also the suppliers can measure the performance, real performance, and make necessary adaptation, improvement, because of course is a circular development, but divided in phases. And the admission in phase 3 or 2 is possible if you have satisfactorily and successfully completed the previous phase. So there are 3 bidding processes. Very complex, yes, but in some cases very capital intensive or when there is a larger market, the investments are enormous and is important to have a way to filter the risk. What the public procurer have not to pay for unsatisfactory results or not still promising results. So this filtering is important. Can be that phase 1 is awarded to 4 competitors. Then the phase 2 is awarded to 3, and the condition that European Commission poses is that at the end, in phase 3, there are at least 2 competitors. Why? We are saying that PCP pre-commercial public procurement can be used when the solution doesn't exist on the market. So it's a way for companies to create a new de facto standard that can be disruptive in the market. And I have example, believe, unfortunately, not in your sector, but I can say you that we are conducting a PCP to decontaminate in situ very polluted brownfield with new disruptive technology, think how many investments are planned but not so expensive that can be done. We can decontaminate all Europe at the cost of a traditional solution. In this case, has been very convenient to manage a 3 phases pre-commercial steps to filter the risk and to conduct in parallel the experimentation, in this case in 2 member states in parallel of 2 solutions, because they can be the new generation of technology for decontaminating Europe brownfields. So are very ambitious projects that justify this pre-commercial exercise. But this can be a illicit exercise because it is a preparatory phase for a real concrete investment. If there is no real investment, I think that companies understand that that is not so robust and solid as a need, and so more opportunistic behavior can be detected in this case. It has to be considered as a preliminary exercise. How can come back here? Are you able to see? No.
Yes, we see.
Okay. So PCP. Then very boring definition, legal definition. The legal definition can be found in directive, are defined in negative way, not in positive with an affirmation. The directive, there is article, for example, article 14 in relevant directive 24, that says that directive apply for conduct for research and development services that fulfill 2 conditions. Conversely, in the second comma is written that the other procurements are excluded from the application of directive. Indeed, PCP is excluded from the directive. Is a procedure defined by the soft regulation. Communication 799 from European Commission define the characteristics and principle of pre-commercial public procurement, but is an excluded procedure. Does this evidence provide more flexibility to the procuring authority? Yes and no. Formally, yes, but in substantial, with substantial consideration, because objective and the principle need to be respected, you have no margin of flexibility, and the only margin of flexibility are provided by the Communication 799 of European Commission. So pre-commercial public procurement is conversely the procurement where the benefit do not accrue exclusive to the contracting authority for its use in the conduct of its own affairs, and the service provided is not wholly remunerated by the contracting authorities. So one can say, you, with PCP, I can't wholly remunerate you. And you get scared. You say, oh, why and how much you will pay me? There has been years ago several misinterpretations of these requirements, of these requirements. And then I try to show you how this has to be interpreted also from your side. But we know that PCP can be implemented when the needs do not accrue exclusively to the contracting authorities. So is a large need that interests many subjects, has an open market to be afforded, and is not wholly remunerated. In PCP, which is a very sophisticated procedure, and also the preparation of technical and economic offer is extremely sophisticated, you have to, in pre-commercial public procurement, you have to define a financial compensation. This is the justification for a not wholly remunerated contract. But let's compare, to understand this point, let's compare pre-commercial public procurement with an ordinary exclusive base contract for R&D services. In traditional and ordinary procurement of R&D services, the public procurer say this: I want your results, and I don't want to share the result of these R&D with other subjects, and I pay implicitly to retain IPRs. The contracts are usually of R&D contract have always or usually a condition. The suppliers renounce to have the ownership of the IPRs. The IPRs are assigned and kept by the procuring authority. Implicitly, when you formulate the price, the offer, your offer, you consider the market price for the R&D services. What are the R&D services? The market price for your personnel, your staff, your researcher. You pay. When you have to formulate an offer for R&D services, you calculate the cost with a margin, of course, a margin, the price for your researchers, and you add the quote that is the market price for the IPRs that you are not still owning. In the case of pre-commercial public procurement, the price that the procuring authority is authorized to pay you is just for the R&D results. So you have to define in comparative terms the financial compensation that is related to the IPR's value, considering the selling that you can have and the cost associated to the protection of your IPRs. And this compensation has to be evidenced in your offer, but is not paid, is not compensated. So your price will be referred exclusively to the market price, including the profit, for your resources used to determine, to produce the result, intended result, but not the value of IPRs. This is the interpretation of not wholly remunerated. Not wholly remunerated if compared with an exclusive base contract. Then definition of PPI, we already talked about this. Here is extensive. PPI, procurement of innovative solution. PPI refer to solutions that which are not yet available on large-scale commercial basis, and you can use open, negotiated, competitive dialogue. And we already refer to the condition that the solution is not already adopted by the first 20% of customers on the market, because if not, if it's adopted for more than 20% of the value spent by customers, it means that it's not still innovative. And in PPI, procurement of innovative solution, you can also buy, you have to buy also for incremental innovation, adaptation, personalization of product or solution can be done, has to be done, because the inherent characteristic of innovation needs to be demonstrated. This is a PPI. With PCP, I procure the ideas, the solutions, and with PPI, I procure the solution itself when ready. What is the main differences between PCP and PPI? PCP is a multiple sourcing contract. PPI is not. PPI, you have one single awardee at the end. Okay.
Sorry, Sarah, just to short reminder, we have around 15-20 minutes to close. And so the last set of questions we'll give you at the end. When you close, we'll show you the last questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's try. PPI is based on 6 pillars. What characterizes a PPI? The description of the need in functional and performance terms. The notification of the intention to buy through a PIN, prior information notice. The conduction of open market consultation before the launch of PPI. The aggregation of joint procurements. The aggregation of several subjects. The awarding based on most economic advantage offer. It means that it's not admitted to ask for the lowest price and assign a contract at the lowest price, but also the quality of the offer needs to be evaluated. And no disproportionate qualification of financial guarantee requirements. Here, innovation partnership is a bundled procurement when you combine the R&D and the supply side. When can be used innovation partnership and why there is a risk for an abuse of this? I have to step here because I haven't know the time to discuss everything. But there is a condition in state aid regulation that states that any procurement of R&D procurement that assign a benefit to for the supply of the final solutions is not a priori state aid free. So the combination of the research and development services plus the supply that is defined under the innovation partnership create a risk of illegitimate state aid because it gives a preferential treatment for the procurement of the final solutions to very well defined operators in the market. This is why at the point European Commission specified what is the case where innovation partnership is an instrument able to assure the non-existence of illegitimate state aid when you have specialized unique products or services. When he is the only customer and when there are limited amount of economic operators that can perform the contract. If a new suppliers arise on the market worldwide, the procedure should be stopped in order to not foreclose the competition. The zero competition distortion is when a procurer is 100% sure that the procurer is so unique that there is only one possible supplier. This slide was taken the days immediately after the publication of innovation partnership in new directive. And European Commission was, and a part of European Commission is still very worried about the implementation of these long partnerships that can really foreclose the competition, because in research and development phase, you can take profit from the ideas generated from non-traditional suppliers, because creativity and innovation do not pertain to suppliers that have necessarily a logistic capacity, can arise from research centers or from cooperation between university research and companies and industries. But the pool of subjects that can offer, can promise, can deliver and deploy the solutions need to have other characteristics, logistic ability, capacity, no? So are subjects so different that a combination in one single bounded procedure will probably penalize the first part. I think, and the evidences demonstrate that when you promise, you are committed to procure the end solution, that you are not incentivizing the companies to be disruptive, because the uncertainty about the result is against the commitment to sell and to provide the final solution. So there are a contradiction in objective, in subject, that can well conduct the first part and the second part. When you have to build a new house, a new building, you assign the design to an architect, and the realization of the house to another type of subject. Is the same in innovation arena. The research and development can be provided by really creative innovators, and the supply can be provided by commercial companies. So this is why the innovation partnership seems to be abused. At the point, also European Commission recognized this risk, and in a new communication, in a communication of 2018, they thought there was the need to clarify themselves that innovation partnership creates a high risk of closing competition, etc., etc. But now the situation is totally different. European Commission is promoting innovation partnership. We have no case law at the moment, and so we have very poor statistical information, insufficient statistical information to extract relevant information. But it seems that innovation procurement, I think that can be of your interest. This indicator, the total value of contract that is awarded directly to SMEs. This table, was done in an initial implementation of this new procedure. These instruments that is indicated in column 3, innovation partnership, demonstrated to be awarded directly to 5.5% to SMEs. Pre-commercial procurement is assigned to SMEs at quite 60%. Do you see that there is a significant differences? And ordinary public procurement is assigned to SMEs at 29%. That is a very low result, because the SMEs participate to real economy at 59%. Pre-commercial procurement is the instrument that it enables the participation of SMEs in a very correspondent, realistic, reflecting the participation in real economy. This is one slide. I ask your support and opinion because the green and sustainable and circular procurement I have not started discussing this, and I don't know how many time can be used.
Maybe we can use this part and switch it to the next webinar that we'll have in the 8th of March.
Okay, so I am open to questions.
Okay, so we will show you the slide as it was for the first session with the questions that we collected from our participants. So we will interrupt in the...
I have to interrupt.
But we can do it for you, no problem. Okay, so we have two questions, very concrete, like always. So first one is, what is your main suggestion for a company? Small and medium-sized enterprises, these are mainly the members of our clusters that want to apply at the public procurement that have no experience, so how to start this process. And the second one is very concrete regarding a specific case of Luce Invento that have recently received an informal request from the public authority for the replacement of 100 street lamps, and they wanted the cluster visit the area and send a quotation. And they asked them to define specifications to submit that can be submitted then to the lighting companies that might be interested in applying. And what Luce Invento wants to know is can they launch an internal call for tenders, or how to manage this to select these companies?
Okay. The first question. The first question depends on particular opportunity. Do you have a particular opportunity in mind, or is a general question to be prepared to participate in eventual potential R&D procurement?
This is something that I will have to ask to Laura from the CCAD cluster that arises in this question. So Laura, if you want, you can all write in chat, or I can give you the possibility to make this question directly.
But I answer in general terms.
Okay.
I think that there are new trends to be prepared. Circular procurement, green procurement is coming to have an extraordinary relevance, will be a condition sine qua non to participate also in your sector. So there are trajectory trends for development that need to be considered. For example, packaging is an important requirement. New systems to reduce the energy consumption. So there are areas of research, also the interpretation and the adaptation, personalization of the lighting system based on the behavior and the needs of the user, the inhabitants, is important. It is extremely important. Okay, I see her comment. So there are trends. Could be important to, in order to be proactive, to suggest to public procurers and say public procurers, we are ready, we are working in this area. Is important when you have created the grounds for collaborating, for example, with high specialized center, or being included as you are in partnership. There are also other partnerships across Europe specifically referred to lighting sector. There are alliances of companies working in this sector. My suggestion will be to multiply my opportunities, be included in several partnership, institutionalized partnership, and there are several partnership. One is your extra light is an umbrella that needs, I will sure it will assure your more visibility at European level. And this will be my suggestion. On one side, to identify specific area of development, promoting yourself as a developer, a pioneer in this area, selecting a theme, a topic, and promoting yourself as a first actors in this field, writing that you are developing, you are thinking new strategy, collaborative strategies, but with well-defined objective. The circular procurement, the green procurement will be and is already the main important area of investment for the public procurer. So promote yourself as a green and sustainable oriented suppliers. Provide your ideas. Next time we'll discuss about important strategic models to sell the product. I want just to give you an insight. At supplier level, what you can do, and it evolved at a certain extent, innovation. Offer a model of product service systems. Try to define model, sustainable model for user pays per use. So do not sell your product, but think about business model sustainable for your business to provide solution with the pay per use models. Propose yourself to be a take back actor that can ensure the optimum value retention via reuse of the solution, not only selling the system, the lighting system, but also presenting yourself as a supplier able to take back the product, or to work in the agreement with third parties to recover the product after use. So providing your clients, your potential clients, a solution where the circularity loop is closed, also including the reuse of or recycling of the solutions, the product, or emphasize the reparability. So innovating in the reparability of your solution can be an area of working. So there are many areas of working. At the same time, I think my suggestion will be to position yourself. Position yourself. Okay, use this project to position yourself to see some trajectory of development, and, for example, work on recycling materials where innovation can be done. The way to make positive and constructive lobby is to position yourself as a relevant actor, integrate through collaboration at European level to innovate in a circular and green and sustainable perspective your solution and business models. This will be the suggestion, because in any case procurement and opportunity will require you absolutely the green and circularity requirements. The second question, Lucia, in Veneto, I've recently received an informal request from APA about replacement, and they want a quote. Okay, why they are asking a quote? For me, they are asking a quote to see what kind of procedure they can implement. During COVID emergence, I assume that is in Italy. Okay, the threshold for direct procurement has been lowered. So it's very low, the threshold, and is approximately 45,000 euro. I can assume, but I don't know. They want to know if they can procure directly without competition, without any procedure, selective procedure. They want to buy the lowest price, so is an not transparent competition. They want to have information to fix the ceiling price, to ask for the subsequent offer. So yes, you can ask them, you can pose them questions. You can eventually, to have more chance, you can say depends on the model of delivery, depends on the circularity. Try to add services, try to add value added if you don't want to enter in a competition based on price. Try to characterize your products with innovative and green solutions. Try to exit from a competition based on price, and stimulate the procuring authority to have eventually to publish a prior information notice. Eventually is a more transparent way to conduct this consultation. Depends on how you are positioned, depends what is your interest. But if I am, as in my role, I would say that here is not totally transparent, and so what I would recommend this procuring authority is to publish a prior information notice that in Italy require an indication of intended investment, so they have to say what is the budget, and they can acquire a lot of suggestions. So my suggestion will be, why not implementing an open market consultation? Open, you publish a PIN, prior information notice. I am this public authority. I want to replace 100 street lamps. I want to have proposal ideas of improvement of service, also in the idea direction of circular economy or green requirement, sustainable procurement. I want to ask about suggestion ideas, etc., etc. And so this is more transparent, and they are forced to launch a procurement. Then the second question, can we launch an internal call for tender? What means internal call for tender? Call for tender can be done, can be implemented by a procuring authority. So what means an internal call for tender?
I will ask here Antonella if she can explain in chat if it means the selection of companies at the cluster level, so it's not procurement. I suppose this is the...
If this public authority asked for an association, it's quite strange. I think the interest is I mean, I don't know if it's an opportunity or not an opportunity. Yeah, this is not clear.
I gave the word to Antonella. So Antonella, if you want to explain directly.
No. In general terms, when a public authority asks you informally for a quote, can be an opportunity or not. We don't know. We have 50% of possibilities. So saying that, I would say that without any specification, it's quite impossible to make a quote. It means that the competition is based on price. That is really the most, the poorest action that a public procureur can do. I don't know if there is an urgence matter in that.
We agree. We understand your point. So I will leave Antonella to investigate this directly with the public authority to see what they have in mind.
I would talk with this public authority, say, we are doing this, we are starting this exercise, we are dealing with new models, and is there the time? It will be a procedure by urgence, will be a direct assignment. You have the right to ask. It will be a direct assignment, or there will be a competition. The competition will be based on price or on the most economic advantage. So also the quality aspect will be considered. These three questions can be posed.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
For selection purposes, will be based on price. Other aspects can be considered because we are moving in other direction. I think you can pose questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this exhausting clarifications. I think that we will have a lot of more questions, but time is running out. So thank you one more time for sharing us with your expertise, and thank you to all partners and other participants to attend this webinar. And we will meet another time on the 8th of March, same time, so from the team 10 to 12. And we will let's say start it from the green procurement, and then we'll proceed with the examples also, and the barriers and opportunities from the companies. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much to you all.
Thanks to you for your
patience.
And
seeing you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.